Firefly, our last...
Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. Hello and welcome to another marvelous video. Hey, time travelers of nostalgia. Today, we're diving into the vibrant world of Saturday morning cartoons from the golden eras of the 1950s and 60s. Whether you were there for the original broadcasts or grew up catching the Cartoon Network reruns, these cartoons from the golden eras are still absolute legends today. William Hanna and Joseph Barbera founded the iconic animation studio and production company Hanna-Barbera. Hanna-Barbera gifted us with countless iconic gems, and there are a chosen few we keep revisiting for that nostalgic hit. So, buckle up as we journey back to a time when TV screens were portals to colorful adventures where heroes, villains, and talking animals captivated audiences every weekend. Get ready to unlock the vault of cherished memories and rediscover the magic that made Saturday mornings an unforgettable part of pop culture history. It's time to check out the best cartoon shows from the golden era. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Jonny Quest, 1964 to 1965. Jonny Quest, also known as The Adventures of Jonny Quest, is this cool American animated sci-fi adventure show about this 11-year-old kid who tags along with his genius scientist dad, Dr. Benson Quest, on these wild adventures for a government agency. To keep Johnny safe from the bad guys, there's this tough dude named Roger Race Bannon, and Johnny's buddy-turned-brother, Haji, also hangs out with them at the Quest compound. And of course, it's a Hanna-Barbera classic, so there's gotta be a dog, Johnny's trusty bulldog, Bandit. Way back in 64-65, the show hit the ABC primetime slot, and boy, did it stand out from the other Hanna-Barbera crowd and basically every cartoon before it. Why? Well, it ditched the usual cartoon look for a super realistic style and crazy detailed animation. It was like a tribute to those old adventure movies, but with a twist. No limits on the fantastical. They could draw stuff Hollywood couldn't create with special effects. That meant the show was packed with epic creatures, cool gadgets, and vehicles that we still can't forget. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about the looks. Most cartoons back then were all about slapstick, over-the-top comedy. Then along came Johnny with its moody colors, shady scenes, eerie tunes, and seriously realistic baddies. It's pretty wild to think that Jonny Quest only had 26 episodes, yet here we are, still catching it in syndication. Looking back, Jonny Quest was the trailblazer for action-packed cartoons. Without it, our cartoon landscape wouldn't look the same today.
Your head. Clap your arms up and down. You mean like this?
The Flintstones, 1960 to 1966. The Flintstones is this awesome American animated sitcom created by Hanna-Barbera Productions. It's set in the fanciful Stone Age world and revolves around the main family, Fred, Wilma, their daughter Pebbles, the Flintstones, and their friends come neighbors, Barney, Betty, and their son Bam Bam, the Rubbles. Of course, we can't forget about Fred's pet dinosaur, Dino. It was the OG animated series on network TV, boasting a whopping 166 original episodes. The whole idea of this modern cave society rocking dinosaurs, stones, and wood in crazy creative ways was a total goldmine, kind of like how futuristic sci-fi characters casually use high-tech stuff to simplify life. That show set the stage for many other animated series and left a massive footprint on the animation scene. Even today, you can spot clear influences from the Flintstones in many cartoons and TV series. It's a timeless classic that still gets a chuckle out of everyone, even after all these years.
Where are you? We got some work to do now.
ScoobyDoo, Where Are You? 1969 to 1978. ScoobyDoo Where Are You is an iconic animated series that nails the mystery-solving vibe. You've got this fantastic crew, including Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and their snack-loving Great Dane, Scooby-Doo, cruising around and cracking cases. They cruise around in their groovy van, the Mystery Machine, solving spooky mysteries that usually turn out to be not so supernatural after all. Every episode is like a giant puzzle, and the gang has to team up and use their brains to reveal the real culprits behind all the spooky tricks. What set this show apart was the perfect blend of humor, adventure, and just the right touch of spookiness. The gang was totally relatable. Shaggy and Scooby's fear and obsession with food, Velma's smarts, Fred's leadership, and Daphne's talent for finding trouble while looking fabulous, of course. ScoobyDoo Where Are You wasn't just about solving mysteries, but about friendship and courage in the face of the unknown. And that catchy theme song? It's like the anthem for all mystery buffs out there. The Bugs Bunny Show, 1960 to 1975. For the clever, carrot-eating superstar Bugs Bunny and a cast of legendary Looney Tunes characters, the Bugs Bunny Show served as the ultimate platform. This program was a comedy goldmine, with episodes showcasing Bugs Bunny's cunning antics, Elmer Fudd's relentless chase, Daffy Duck's crazy behavior, and a slew of other beloved characters, including Taz, Tweety Bird, Porky Pig, and Felix the Cat. It's a timeless humor and slapstick comedy that made both adults and children laugh and made it stand out. They even included songs and skits to liven things up. It resembled an animated variety show with all the elements that contributed to the fame of these characters. Kinda like the Saturday Night Live of cartoons. From Bugs' catchphrases to those epic face-offs between classic rivals, the Bugs Bunny Show was pure entertainment that continues to bring smiles to viewers of all ages, even decades after its original run.
Now, my fine pigeon.
The Woody Woodpecker Show, 1957. The Woody Woodpecker Show brought the wild adventures of that famous namesake woodpecker to American TV screens, along with some other awesome characters like Andy Panda and Chile Wily. It was a blast. This show, coming straight from Walter Lantz Productions, had a bunch of revamps over the years but stayed a hit for almost 4 decades. It kept the studio rolling out those awesome cartoon flicks until they called it quits in 1972. In every episode, the show was a riot, with Woody causing chaos and getting himself into some ridiculous situations. His crazy antics and that unique chuckle of his, well, that's what made him a total cartoon legend. The beloved animated series won over fans' hearts with its ageless charm and absurd humor. The Roadrunner Show, 1966. The Roadrunner Show was an absolute blast. The show was all about this crafty coyote trying non-stop to outsmart a super speedy and clever roadrunner somewhere in the deserts of the southern USA. The coyote used all sorts of gadgets and tricks, but no matter what he did, he just couldn't catch that bird. It's that kind of show where you can't help but root for the underdog, or in this case, the under-coyote. You end up feeling a bit sorry for Wile E. Coyote because, well, deep down, you want him to score a win, even if it's just for once. Something timeless about this show keeps me coming back for more, no matter how much animation has evolved. The Adventures of Tintin, 1957. Tintin was a huge comic book obsession for me as a kid. Unlike the Spielberg movie, this particular series stays super faithful to the original. You've got Tintin, the intrepid reporter, diving into adventures with his pals Captain Haddock, Professor Calculus, and his loyal pet sidekick, Snowy. Now, while the tone is primarily light and there's no graphic violence, it's not really meant for the little ones. There are loads of references to crimes like smuggling, forgery, theft, and even some about war and drug trafficking. And it's not short on action either. Plenty of fistfights, shootouts, and car chases. It's like Indiana Jones with a touch of mystery, a sprinkle of adventure, and just the right amount of excitement to keep you hooked. It's a timeless classic that continues to captivate fans even today, just like the comic books. SpiderMan, 1967 to 1970. The iconic Spider-Man pointing meme was taken from this epic show. Since his comic book debut in August 1962, readers have been hooked on Spider-Man and his adventures. For the first 5 years, Spider-Man lived exclusively within the pages of comics. But as his popularity skyrocketed, there was a realization that his potential went far beyond just comic books. While a movie might have been a stretch considering the era, animation turned out to be the perfect medium to bring Spider-Man to a broader audience. And thus, in 1967, the world was gifted with the legendary Spider-Man cartoon. The show started off pretty standard with your classic villains like Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, along with the usual storylines. But the show turned wild as the creative team behind the scenes switched up. Watching this series is a hoot because you can't help but chuckle at how cheap it looks. I mean, it was the 60s, so no one was expecting super slick animation or anything. But even for its time, Spider-Man feels like it was put together on a shoestring budget. They reuse many animation sequences repeatedly, and in many scenes, hardly anything moves. Sometimes it's just still drawings with only the mouths flapping. The stiff visuals might not be everyone's cup of tea, but if you're into the early Spider-Man comics, it's got that retro vibe nailed down. Easily my favorite Spider-Man TV show of all time. Space Ghost, 1966 to 1968. Space Ghost was a classic American animated series cooked up by Hanna-Barbera Productions. It was split into 2 parts, the Space Ghost Adventures and another segment called Dino Boy in the Lost Valley. In Space Ghost's cosmic escapades, he'd soar through space with his teenage pals Jan and Jace, plus their monkey buddy Blip. Together, they'd tackle all sorts of outer space baddies. It was a familiar setup. The villains often snatched Space Ghost's sidekicks, leaving him to battle and save the day. Space Ghost was a total game changer as a superhero cruising through space. Back then, that idea was super new and pumped up the excitement for viewers. And boy, did Space Ghost have a lineup of impressive foes. There was a whole rogues gallery with characters like Zorak, Brak, his brother Sisto, the Creature King, Black Widow, and many more. They made sure Space Ghost's adventures were always action-packed. In the end, Space Ghost stuck around because it flipped the script with its fresh storytelling, a superhero in space that was just plain cool, and how it influenced the world of animated superhero shows. Popeye the Sailor, 1960 to 1962. Time to talk about my personal favourite cartoon show from the list. Popeye the Sailor is an animated TV series brought to life by King Features Syndicate. It's got a hefty 220 episodes, all produced between 1960 and 1962 for the first run syndication. Most of these cartoons revolve around Popeye and his girlfriend Olive Oyl battling it out against their rival Brutus. Moreover, this series reinforced Popeye's status as a cultural icon. His memorable catchphrases like, "I am what I am," and his trademark spinach power became even more ingrained in popular culture through these episodes. Plus, the show's cool animation and catchy theme song made it a hit with old-time fans who loved the original cartoons and new fans too. Popeye the Sailor made his comic strip debut back in January 1929. Initially, he was just one of many characters in Elsie Segar's comic series called Thimble Theatre, which had been around for about a decade before Popeye strutted onto the scene. This one-eyed 34-year-old sailor, who was said to be born during a typhoon in Santa Monica, California, had a distinctive look and a severe speech issue. But despite his quirks, Popeye's popularity soared, leading the comic strip to get renamed first to Thimble Theatre starring Popeye, and later simply Popeye, a title it still goes by today. While Popeye made a name for himself in the comic strip world, it's his role as a movie cartoon star that most folks recognize him for. His big screen debut happened in a 1933 Betty Boop Paramount cartoon, Popeye the Sailor. That's where many people got their first glimpse of the spinach-loving sailor in action.
Oh, good, they haven't started yet. Look, Jetson, here come the ringers on
The Jetsons, 1962 to 1963. It's time to talk about the Flintstones of the future. Similar to how the Flintstones depicted a family in prehistoric times, the Jetsons showcased a comparable family dynamic but set in a futuristic world. The Jetsons aired for just one season of 24 episodes after its premiere in 1962. Despite its short run, it's become the pinnacle of 20th century futurism. Even though additional episodes were made in the mid-1980s, that initial 24-episode season was pivotal in shaping how many Americans perceive the future today. It's often seen as the epitome of American futurism because, well, in terms of technology, it had everything we could imagine. Jetpacks, flying cars, robot helpers, and even moving sidewalks. But here's the thing. While the creators of the Jetsons didn't invent these futuristic ideas, they did an incredible job of bundling them up into entertaining 25-minute episodes for eager kids to gobble up. Even though it was a cartoon filled with jokes and parodies, it was rooted in genuine hopes and predictions for the future. My favorite gadget was the device that cooked your favorite meal after pressing a button. Still a dream, I guess. Felix the Cat, 1958 to 1961. Felix the Cat is this hilarious cartoon character born during the silent film era. With his black body, big white eyes, and massive grin, he's got a look that stands out. And the wild, surreal scenarios he gets into, well, they've helped make Felix one of the most well-known cartoon characters in movie history. In fact, he was the first animated character to become so popular that people flocked to the theaters just to see him before he got overshadowed by Disney's Mickey Mouse. Following the Van Buren Corporation's era, Joe Oriolo steered Felix toward a more relatable and kid-friendly vibe, giving him a domesticated and down-to-earth personality. He introduced Felix's iconic magic bag of tricks, a satchel that could transform itself into whatever Felix desired. Additionally, Oriolo brought in new characters like Felix's ultimate nemesis, the Professor, and his cigar-loving bulldog sidekick, Rock Bottom. In most episodes, the Professor would try all sorts of wacky schemes to snatch Felix's magic bag for himself. Even though this show was a hit with viewers, critics often saw it falling short compared to the earlier Sullivan Mesmer works. Oriolo had a target audience of kids in mind for these cartoons. Due to budget constraints, the series employed limited animation and kept the storylines relatively straightforward and simple.
Hey, Gumby. Too bad.
The Gumby Show, 1956 to 1969. This much-loved children's comedy adventure using claymation and stop-action aired for 13 long years. It followed the escapades of Gumby, this green clay figure turned humanoid, and his trusty pony pal, Pokey. Even before the whole idea of a multiverse was a thing, these characters could step into any book and dive right into the world within its pages. Gumby's adventures were about stirring up the imagination and delivering meaningful lessons that reached kids and adults. It went beyond mere entertainment. There were these deeper messages that really hit home. Overall, its pioneering animation style, engaging storytelling, and memorable characters cemented the Gumby Show as an iconic piece of television history. The Mighty Mouse Playhouse, 1955 to 1966. The Mighty Mouse Playhouse was an American TV anthology series showcasing animated short films starring the character known as Mighty Mouse. It aired on CBS from 1955 to 1966 and was critical in boosting Mighty Mouse's popularity beyond the original film shorts. The character was originally conceived as a playful spoof of Superman. Sporting his distinctive red suit and cape, he engaged in thrilling adventures, battling villains and utilizing his superpowers to safeguard the innocent and champion righteousness. Mighty Mouse didn't hit it big in theaters, but when it came to becoming a cultural icon, the idiot box made all the difference. By the 1950s, most short film studios struggled due to the shift of audiences to TV and the rise of low-budget, stylized limited animation. Many studios transitioned from film production and began selling their libraries to TV. Paul Terry even sold the whole Terrytoon company to CBS in 1955, leading to the debut of Mighty Mouse Playhouse on the network in December of that year. It aired for nearly 12 years, and Mighty Mouse cartoons stuck around in children's TV for over 30 years, from the 1950s through to the 1980s.
All right, you clods, when you hear the sound of the cymbals, let's
Top
set
Cat,
up
1961 to 1962. Top Cat is set in the backstreets of New York. It centers around a crew of street-savvy cats, including Choo Choo, Fancy Fancy, Spook, and more, all under the leadership of Top Cat. He's the yellow-furred, cunning main character, a bit greedy and somewhat lazy, but clever as can be. Top Cat, or TC, as his friends call him, is known for his smarts and mischievous schemes, aiming to strike it rich, get free meals, or pull pranks. However, they're under the watchful eye of Officer Dibble, who is strict yet secretly friendly towards the gang. The show's clever writing, the charm of its characters, and Top Cat's unique leadership and chemistry with Officer Dibble truly set it apart, carving out a particular place in viewers' hearts throughout the years. The classic TV show ran for only one season, which was 30 episodes.
Oh, my darling, oh, my darling.
The Huckleberry Hound Show, 1958 to 1962. Huckleberry Huck Hound is a character crafted and developed by Hanna-Barbera, taking the spotlight in the 1958 syndicated animated series The Huckleberry Hound Show, which marked Hanna-Barbera's second TV series following The Rough and Ready Show. This show was the one that truly put Hanna-Barbera on the map, thanks to Huck, along with the two additional segments, Yogi Bear with his buddy Boo Boo and Pixie and Dixie. With the voice talents of Dawes Butler, Huckleberry was a blue dog known for his southern drawl and laid-back, kind-hearted nature. The term Huckleberry can slangily refer to a novice or someone inexperienced, which suited Huck's personality. He'd often venture into various jobs, like being a policeman or a bus driver, and things would go awry during these attempts. Duh. However, Huck usually prevailed, whether through persistent effort or sheer luck. The show succeeded mainly because of its clever writing and Hanna-Barbera's groundbreaking approach to animated TV series.
Starring that champion of champions, Underdog.
Underdog, 1964 to 1973. Underdog premiered in 1964 on NBC and later aired in syndication until 1973, totaling around 124 episodes on NBC and CBS. The show portrayed an anthropomorphic superhero spoof inspired by characters like Superman, featuring a character with a secret identity. The storyline revolved around Shoeshine Boy, an endearing cartoon dog secretly doubling as the superhero Underdog. George S. Irving provided narration, while Wally Cox, a comedic actor, voiced both Underdog and Shoeshine Boy. Whenever trouble brewed, Shoeshine Boy would dash into a telephone booth, transforming into the Cape Crusader and inadvertently demolishing the booth with his activated superpowers. Underdog was known for his knack for speaking in rhymes. In most episodes, there was a recurring pattern when Underdog revealed himself. A crowd would gaze up at the sky, exclaiming, "Look in the sky! It's a plane! It's a bird!" Then an old lady with glasses would chime in, "It's a frog!" Someone else would react, "A frog?" That's when Underdog would respond, "Not plane, nor bird, nor even frog. It's just little old me, Underdog." Underdog's actions often led to a lot of collateral damage. Whenever someone complained about the mess, Underdog would reply, "I am a hero who never fails. I cannot be bothered with such details." Oh, I miss these shows. The Pink Panther Show, 1969 to 1978. We're all familiar with this character thanks to the movies and iconic theme music. The Pink Panther show centered around various animated shorts featuring the misadventures of the Pink Panther and the Inspector character created by David H. DePatie and Friz Freleng between 1969 and 1978. In 1969, the Pink Panther show debuted with a format showcasing one cartoon featuring the Inspector sandwiched between two Pink Panther entries. The 30-minute program was linked by bumper sequences, presenting both the Panther and Inspector together while an off-camera narrator, Marvin Miller, engaged with the Panther. The Pink Panther shorts made after 1969, starting with A Fly in the Pink, were crafted for both television broadcast and theatrical release. They typically premiered on TV first and then hit theaters through United Artists. After airing for 9 years on NBC, the Pink Panther transitioned to ABC in 1978 and rebranded as the all-new Pink Panther show. However, its stint on ABC lasted only one season before departing from the network altogether. The show gained fame for its unique blend of sophisticated humor, clever visual gags, and a catchy theme tune composed by Henry Mancini.
You'll have to do better.
Birdman, 1967 to 1987. Birdman is an animated science fiction series that Alex Toth developed and Hanna-Barbera produced. It premiered on NBC in 1967 and aired on Saturday mornings until January 1968. The show follows the story of Ray Randall, an average human endowed with superpowers derived from the Egyptian sun god Ra. Under the guise of Birdman, he collaborates with his loyal eagle, Avenger, within a clandestine government agency directed by the enigmatic Falcon 7. Falcon 7 communicates with Birdman in his high-tech bird lair, concealed within a volcano, equipped with advanced technology like computers, video monitors, and a control panel. As Birdman, Ray possesses super strength, flight capabilities via bird-like wings, solar energy blasts, heightened hearing, and the ability to generate a shield from solar power. However, his powers weaken if he remains out of sunlight for too long. Utilizing these abilities, Birdman combats evil entities, including the criminal organization Fear, led by the mysterious Number One. The show resonated with viewers due to its exploration of justice, combating villains, and employing advanced tech for fighting crime. The depiction of a covert government agency and the enigmatic nature of Birdman's missions brought depth and suspense to the storytelling, further captivating the audience.
Gin rummy, chamois de fur, whist, old maid, young...
Snagglepuss, 1959. Before Snagglepuss became the star of his own show, he had some side gigs in various Hanna-Barbera cartoons. There's a bit of a debate about his first appearance, but this character named Snaggletooth, looking a lot like Snagglepuss, showed up in a 1959 episode of Quick Draw McGraw. This Snaggletooth dude seems to be the early version of our feline pal. Snagglepuss wasn't an overnight sensation though. He did the supporting character thing in Quick Draw McGraw, Oggy Doggy and Doggy Daddy, and Snooper and Blabber. But finally in 1961 he got his own deal, 7 minutes of fame alongside Yogi Bear and Yaki Doodle on the Yogi Bear Show. Snagglepuss might have fancied himself a refined poet and actor, but being a mountain lion meant dodging hunters was part of his gig, far from the glamorous life he'd have preferred in his posh cave. His love for classic lit led to some hilariously misquoted Shakespeare lines in his iconic "Heavens to Murgatroyd" whenever things got hairy, or the classic "Exit, stage left" or right when he bolted off screen to avoid trouble. Each episode saw Snagglepuss dealing with a new adversary, except for Major Minor, a big game hunter who failed miserably at catching him. When Snagglepuss's solo show wrapped up, he kept busy with TV specials and joined the cast of various new series like Yogi's Gang, Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, and more. A true icon from the golden era.
Now the Wacky Racers are streaking toward the finish line in
Wacky Races, 1968 to 1970. Wacky Races was this animated show that ran from 68 to 70 on CBS. It seemed to take a cue from the 1965 flick, The Great Race. Picture this, 11 racers, zooming across North America, all vying to snag the title of the world's wackiest racer. The fun part? There were 23 wacky characters from various cartoon shows crammed into these 11 racing cars. Wild, right? Initially, the cartoon was supposed to be part of a live-action game show where folks would bet on which wacky racer would finish first. But that plan hit the brakes. Yet, the show kept its joint credit between Hanna-Barbera and game show producers Merrill Heater and Robert Quigley. Each episode starts with this unseen narrator giving us the lowdown, even chatting up the racers as they speed along. The big baddie? That's Dick Dastardly, cruising around in a purple rocket-fueled car loaded with secret weapons and even capable of flying. He's your classic mustache-twirling villain. Surprisingly, the other characters kinda get along. They're often seen helping each other out of traps set by Dastardly, although they're not immune to using some sneaky tactics themselves. Some of these tricks might be as shady as Dastardly's, but somehow they seem to slip under the radar. It's one of the most fun shows from the golden era.
Hand me a cup of tea.
Cup of tea? What are you going to do with that?
I'm going to tea off.
The Rocky and Bullwinkle Show, 1959 to 1963. The Rocky and Bullwinkle Show aired on ABC and NBC in the late 50s to early 60s. Created by J. Ward Productions, it's kinda like a variety show starring the leading duo Bullwinkle the Moose and Rocky the Flying Squirrel. These two get tangled up in serialized adventures, usually facing off against the Russianish spies Boris Badenov and Natasha Fatale. The characters hailed from the fictional Frostbite Falls, Minnesota, inspired by the actual town of International Falls, Minnesota. Rocky and Bullwinkle is famous for its clever writing and humor. It blends puns, cultural commentary, and witty jokes to entertain kids and adults. While it was innovative in many ways, it was also one of the first cartoons to use outsourced animation. This led to a less polished look and limited animation, even for TV standards. Despite this, many who have seen it hold great esteem for it. Some critics even liken it to a brilliantly written radio show with added visuals.
Bully for you, Yogi.
The Yogi Bear Show, 1961 to 1962. Yogi Bear is this famous smart bear dude you'll find in Hanna-Barbera cartoons. He started off in 1958, hanging out on the Huckleberry Hound show, but he quickly became the big star of Hanna-Barbera. By 61, he snagged his own gig, the Yogi Bear Show, rolling with Snagglepuss and Yacky Doodle. One nifty thing about Yogi is his collar. It made things easier for the animators. They could keep his body still and change his head when he spoke, cutting down the number of drawings big time. Most of Yogi's adventures took place in Jellystone Park, kinda like a spoof of Yellowstone. He and his bud Boo Boo were always scheming to swipe picnic baskets from campers, which totally ticked off Park Ranger Smith. Sometimes Cindy Bear showed up, and she wasn't really into Yogi's shenanigans. He also had that classic self-promoting, smarter than the average bear catchphrase that everyone loved.
Thunder! Ooh, that was a close one.
Mr. Magoo, 1960 to 1961. Mr. Magoo, the brainchild of UPA Animation Studios in '49, is this old, loaded dude who's almost as blind as a bat, but won't own up to it. Voiced by Jim Backus, he's constantly stumbling into hilarious situations thanks to his super bad eyesight and his refusal to admit he can't see well. His first gig was in Ragtime Bear, 1949, where he mistook a bear for his nephew Waldo, coated in raccoon gear. Supposedly, John Hubley crafted him based on his bull-headed uncle, Harry Woodruff, who never admitted he was wrong. Oh, and the comedian W.C. Fields was also an influence. Mr. Magoo was an animated TV series that ran from November 1960 to February 1962. Each episode had 5 4-minute shorts that could either be shown as a half-hour program or split up to air separately, with one short on weekdays and other cartoons. What made Magoo special was that you got who he was by watching him, not because he said it or someone narrated it.
The heat rays are coming from the planet Aqueous. They've always been at peace with the universe.
Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, 1967 to 1969. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio is an animated sci-fi series by Alex Toth and produced by Hanna-Barbera. It first hit NBC screens in September 1967, running on Saturday mornings till September 1969. The show's got 2 parts: Birdman, showcasing the solar-powered superheroes' adventures, and the Galaxy Trio, following 3 heroes from outer space. Each Saturday on NBC, viewers got 2 fresh bits of Birdman, with a slice of the Galaxy Trio sandwiched in between. We've already talked about Birdman in this video, so let's talk a bit about the Galaxy Trio. The Galaxy Trio is a squad of 3 cosmic heroes, Vapor Man, Meteor Man, and Gravity Girl, soaring through space in their ship Condor 1 to enforce galactic patrol laws and battle wrongdoers. Vapor Man's unique power lets him morph into a gas form, zoom around, slip free from tight spots, and squeeze through tiny spaces. Meteor Man stands out with his knack for resizing parts of his body, making them bigger or smaller as needed, and Gravity Girl wields control over gravity itself, granting her the ability to fly and wield immense strength by manipulating gravitational forces. Talk about unique characters as well as powers.
Problems get your mind upset. Don't look back and don't regret.
The Archie Show, 1968 to 1969. The Archie Show kicked off a whole bunch of Saturday morning cartoons based on Bob Montana's Archie comics characters and produced by Filmation. It premiered on CBS in September 1968 and kept Archie Andrews and his gang, Jughead, Veronica, Betty, Reggie, and the crew going strong in spin-off shows until 1978. What made it kinda unique was that it was the first Saturday morning cartoon to roll with a laugh track, setting a trend that stuck around till the early 80s. In a regular episode, Archie would usually kick things off with a story introduction introduction, maybe with some help from another character. Then came the Dance of the Week part, teasing it before the ad break and Archie unveiling it afterward, followed by a song from the Archies. Throw in a quick joke and it's time for the second Archie story. That's pretty much how all 17 half hours were laid out. But the show's claim to fame? That'd be the Archies band, with Ron Dante and Tony Wine on the vocals, hitting it big with the catchy tune Sugar Sugar back in '69. Now, this show had nothing in common with Riverdale.
How you like that, little Moses?
The Alvin Show, 1961 to 1962. The Alvin Show is an American animated series that introduced the Chipmunks and his crew to the TV world. Well, kinda, because there was a similar show called The Nutty Squirrels present that came out a year before, but this was the first to really spotlight the Chipmunks. It only lasted one season, aired in primetime on CBS, and kicked off in black and white. The show revolved around the Chipmunks: Alvin, the troublemaker; Simon, the smart dude; and Theodore, the hungry one. They were managed by their dad figure, David Seville, who was also portrayed as this bumbling guy trying to deal with the trio's musical shenanigans. Besides the Chipmunk adventures, there were the segments with Clyde Crashcup. He was this guy who kept inventing things that he kinda sorta stole from history, but always goofed up until his quiet and clever assistant Leonardo saved the day. Even after the show ended, CBS kept airing it on Saturday mornings for a bit, and chunks of it were later syndicated as Alvin and the Chipmunks.
He calls that a yell. I'll give him a real yell.
The Milla Gorilla Show, 1963 to 1967. The Milla Gorilla Show is this animated series starring Milla Gorilla, the shop-bound ape. Hanna-Barbera made it for Screen Gems, and Ideal Toys was on board, sponsoring the show for a few years from 64 to 67. Milla was this gorilla, hanging out in a pet shop's window, just eating bananas and being a money pit for Mr. Peebles, the shop owner. Peebles kept trying to sell him, but folks only ever rented Milla for a bit, like bank robbers needed a gorilla, or a company wanted a mascot. But Milla always got returned, so Peebles had to cough up refunds. At the end of each episode, Milla would say, "We'll try again next week." The only buddy Milla had was Ogie, this cute red-headed girl who popped up in the theme song asking, "How much is that gorilla in the window?" The show was such a huge hit that ABC reran the 31 episodes during Saturday mornings after the first year aired, and then again on Sunday mornings the following season. The Heckle Jackal Show, TV series, 1956 to 1971. Heckle Jackal are cartoon characters created by Paul Terry, made at Terrytoons, and put out by 20th Century Fox. They're a duo of yellow-billed magpies who love causing chaos with their wild antics. One's got that tough New York talk, while the other's more polite with a British accent. The whole deal started with the talking magpies back in '46. Not with these identical bird buds, but a married pair of magpies. Terry thought up the identical birds and rolled out the uninvited pests in '46. Kickstarting their journey from '46 to '66, Terrytoons made 52 Heckle Jackal cartoons. When CBS took over Terrytoons in '55, they shuffled the cartoons around different slots. The first CBS Cartoon Theatre in '56 even featured the magpie short Flying South. The Heckle Jackal cartoon show hit CBS Saturday mornings in '56 and continued until '66. It wasn't just about these bird buddies. They threw in shorts of other Terrytoons pals like Mighty Mouse, Little Rockford and Percy the Cat, Gandy Goose, Dinky Duck and the Terry Bears. The Heckle Jackal series was anything but predictable, especially when you put it next to the Mighty Mouse shorts. These two chatty magpies found themselves in all sorts of scenarios, beyond just bothering their enemies. The show even inspired its own comic book series, with stories crafted and drawn by none other than Jim Tyler himself. Batfink, 1966. Batfink is a series of short animated episodes that kicks off in September 1967 and was whipped up quickly by Hal Seeger in 1966. It took a dig at the popular Batman and the Green Hornet TV shows that debuted that same year. This grey bat in a yellow getup rocked a big red bee on his chest, red boots and gauntlets. In the last episode, we learned he snagged his powers from being born in an old plutonium mine and lost his natural wings as a kid, saving his mum from an explosion in their mountain cave. That ordeal turned him into a crime-fighting superhero. It's not a tragic backstory like Bruce Wayne's, obviously. It's a kid's show. Batfink hangs in a split-level cave and keeps a video link straight to the chief's office. His martial arts whiz of a sidekick, karate, sports a G, and drives the battle lag. He's a big guy, but not the brightest bulb, always lugging around gadgets in his utility belt. I mean utility sleeve, but he can't seem to find what he needs when he needs it. Then there's the main villain, Hugo a Go-Go, a wild-haired mad scientist wearing a blue smock. He spends his time in a secret lab making nutty gadgets to take down Batfink and rule the world. Batfink has two ace superpowers or weapons, that supersonic sonar radar and those metallic wings. Each episode usually had one of these powers helping him nab the bad guys. King Kong, 1966 to 1969. King Kong is an anime series that aired from 1966 to 1969 for 3 seasons. It was the first series by an American company that was produced in Japan. The series is based on a film character of the same name. The film's King Kong was shown as a destructive monster, whereas the anime series portrayed him as a friend of the Bond family and a protector of humanity. King Kong was found on Mondo Island, also known as Skull Island, by Bobby Bond. Bobby was saved by King Kong on several occasions, which turned the two of them into friends. Kong eventually became friends with the rest of the Bond family. Together, they went on adventures and fought aliens, robots, monsters, and other threats to humanity throughout the series. The success of the series led to the extension of the Kong franchise in another Japanese company. 2 films came out as a result of this: Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, and King Kong Escapes. Dastardly and Mutley in their flying machines, 1969 to 1970. Dastardly and Mutley, as it was known in the UK, was a Hanna-Barbera animated series that aired for 17 episodes. It was a spin-off of another animated series called Wacky Races. The show featured Dick Dastardly and his dog Mutley. Together, they made efforts to stop a pigeon named Yankee Doodle Pigeon. The pigeon carried secret messages to the opposing army that the duo were so eager to stop in their World War I style airplane. In the show Wacky Races, Dastardly and Mutley were the villains. In this spin-off show, they were the members of Vulture Squadron, and to save their side, they had to stop the pigeon who was trying to leak their secrets to the opposing army. The duo devised different plans in every episode to stop the pigeon. Interestingly, Stop That Pigeon was supposed to be the title of the show, but it only ended up in the title song's lyrics.
Fantastic!
Fantastic Four, 1967 to 1970. Another Hanna-Barbera production, Fantastic Four was the first animated series which was based on the Marvel comic book series of the same name. The series ran from 1967 to 1968, consisting of 20 episodes on Cartoon Network. Fantastic Four started rerunning in 1970 and later started airing in 1992 on different channels. The story followed 4 scientists who were launching a test rocket ship, and while doing so, they were accidentally struck by cosmic rays. After crash landing on Earth, they realized they'd gained some strange new powers because of the cosmic rays. Reed Richards became Mr. Fantastic, gaining the elasticity in his limbs that could extend to an endless limit. Sue Richards became Invisible Girl due to the power of invisibility. Ben Grimm became the Thing, a strong, orange-colored, granite-like creature. Johnny Storm was now the Human Torch because of his ability to set his body on fire and his power of flight. Together, the Fantastic Four fought off dangerous villains such as Doctor Doom, Mole Man, Alien Skrulls, and many more. Clutch Cargo, 1959 to 1960. Clutch Cargo started airing in 1959 and ran for 52 episodes. The show was the first widely known example of using Synchrovox technology. This is a method of filming where static images are combined with moving images. Clutch Cargo was produced by Cambria Productions and was notable for its imaginative stories. The series was based on an adventurer named Clutch Cargo. He was sent on dangerous missions around the world and was accompanied by his young ward Spinner and pet dog Paddlefoot, a dachshund. Each episode had 5 5-minute chapters, all of them ending in cliffhangers. The 5th chapter would conclude one whole episode. The different chapters were aired on weekdays and they were combined for half-an-hour episodes for Saturday's show. Clark Haas, the creator of this series, was a former jet pilot, so they also featured live footage of a 1929 Bellanca C-27 Airbus.
Here, Baba Louie, put this apple on his noggin.
Quick Draw McGraw, 1959 to 1962. The Quick Draw McGraw show aired from 1959 to 1962 and was the 3rd series produced by Hanna-Barbera. One episode featured 3 different segments. The first one had the protagonist Quick Draw McGraw and his sidekick Baba Louie. The second segment had Doggy Daddy and Oggy Doggy, a father-son duo, and the 3rd segment would show the cat and mouse detectives Snooper and Blabber. Quick Draw was a sheriff who would be seen with his deputy Baba Louie. The two of them used to solve cases together, where Baba Louie would be the wiser one, with Quick Draw nonetheless refusing to listen to him initially. The second segment had a dog called Oggy Doggy and his father Doggy Daddy. This duo faced different misadventures in their life. The characters from the 3rd segment, Snooper and Blabber, worked for a detective agency called Super Snooper Detective Agency, where they solved mysteries and caught criminals. Snooper was a cat and Blabber was a mouse.
There.
The New Adventures of Superman, 1966 to 1970. The New Adventures of Superman aired for 4 seasons, from 1966 to 1970. Each episode was 6 minutes long and got broadcast every Saturday morning. It was produced by Filmation Associates. The series was based on DC Comics and stayed true to most of it. Some other characters and storylines were introduced that were also developed by the DC Comics writers employed by the production. Several comic villains had their animation debut in this series, such as Toyman, Lex Luthor, Titano, Brainiac, and a few more. Although the series was successful, it angered Action for Children's Television, an organization formed to improve the television quality for children. Since the New Adventures of Superman featured violence, action, and fights, the group went against it. Due to this, the series was cancelled. Astro Boy, 1952. Astro Boy, known as Mighty Atom in Japan, is a Japanese animated series. It ran from 1963 to 1966 and had 193 episodes in Japan and 104 in dubbed versions. Astro Boy was based on a manga series and was set in the year 2003. The series changed the year to 2013. The story was about a scientist, Dr. Tenma, who lost his only son, Tobio, in a car accident. A grieving Dr. Tenma ordered the production of a super robot who would look like Tobio. The most advanced robot was created, but due to its inability to grow, Dr. Tenma sold it to a circus in anger. Later, he lost his job and disappeared. The robots in the circus are forced to participate in dangerous activities. Tobio, who's now called Atom, doesn't want to be there and runs into Professor Ochanamizu, who's working at the Ministry of Science, succeeding Dr. Tenma. Ochanamizu is kind and empathetic toward robots, unlike Tenma. After realizing that Atom is special, he sets him free from the circus and becomes his father figure. The Rough and Ready Show, 1957 to 1962. The Rough and Ready Show aired for 3 seasons from 1957 to 1960. It follows the adventures of Rough, a cat, and Ready, a dog. Rough is a smart cat and Ready is a brave and good-natured dog. This is one of the first original animated television series which used limited techniques of animation. Rough and Ready are best friends and live in the same house. The stories were divided into different episodes. One story had 13 episodes, where 4 used to air per show, each of them ending with a cliffhanger. The series was broadcast in black and white until 1959, after which it shifted to color format. The show was hosted by Jimmy Blaine and narrated by Don Messick. Aquaman, 1967. Aquaman is a 36-episode long animated series that aired from 1967 to 1970 on CBS. The show was based on the DC Comics character Aquaman and his sidekick, Aqualad. The series also featured other characters from the comics such as The Flash, the Green Lantern, the Kid Flash, Hawkman, and the Atom. There were also team-ups with Teen Titans and the Justice League. Aquaman used to ride a seahorse called Storm, and Aqualad had a sea pony called Imp as his ride, along with Tusky, his pet walrus.
Presenting Frankenstein Jr. and The Impossibles.
Frankenstein Jr. and The Impossibles, 1966. Frankenstein Jr. and The Impossibles premiered in 1966 till 67 and ran for 2 seasons. The program used to feature 2 segments per episode. One segment would feature the story of Frankenstein Jr. A young scientist, Buzz Conroy, along with his father Professor Conroy, used to fight supervillains with the help of Frankenstein Jr. He was a heroic robot built and activated by Buzz with an energy ring. The Impossibles was a story of superheroes. A trio, namely Multi-Man, Coil-Man and Fluid-Man, were superheroes called the Impossibles, living in the disguise of a rock music band, like the Beatles. Their superpowers were reflected in their names. Multi-Man could multiply himself, creating his identical copies. Coil-Man could turn into a springy coil, and Fluid-Man could turn his body into any fluid. They went on missions assigned to them by Big D. The show was cancelled due to complaints against the violence that was portrayed in the show. The Adventures of Spunky and Tadpole, 1958 to 1961. The Adventures of Spunky and Tadpole was broadcast from 1957 to 1961. This television series featured the story of a boy called Spunky and a bear named Tadpole. The duo used to hunt down bad guys. Each episode was 3.5 minutes long, with 10 parts comprising each story. The show had a simple, basic animation style, with Don Messick doing voices for the characters. However, the cartoon couldn't get higher ratings as compared to its competitors during that time. Lopy Deloop, 1959. After leaving Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Cartoon Studio, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera opened their studio called Hanna-Barbera Productions in 1957. Lopy Deloop was produced from 1959 to 1965. It was a short theatrical cartoon series comprising 48 shorts. It was the only theatrical cartoon series produced by the studio. Lopy was a wolf who was a gentleman, and he tried to converse in a different accent while wearing a knit cap. He called himself a good wolf and tried to clear the bad reputation surrounding wolves. He helped people because he considered himself kind and compassionate, only to be kicked out of the town all the time just because he was a wolf. He never lost faith and always tried to win their trust back by being his charming self. The Atamant Secret Squirrel Show, 1965. The Atamant Secret Squirrel Show is an animated series that was aired as 2 different programs of half an hour each. The first program featured Atamant, the tiny superhero, with the additional segments of the Hillbilly Bears and Precious Pup. The second program was the story of the master spy called Secret Squirrel, again with 2 additional segments of Winsome Witch and Squiddly Diddly. The series aired from 1965 to 1967, and the 2 programs used to run independently in the fall. During winters, the programs were combined, making them an hour long. Atamant was a story of a superhero ant who used to fly. The Hillbilly Bears was a situation comedy of the Ruggs, a bear family. Precious Pup was a story of a dog and its owner, Granny Sweet. Secret Squirrel portrayed the adventures of a squirrel who was a secret agent along with his assistant Morocco Mole. Squiddly Diddly was a story of an anthropomorphic squid who was on his quest to stardom. Winsome Witch, on the other hand, was the story of a friendly witch named Winsome W. Witch. Mattys Funnies with Beanie and Cecil, 1959 to 1962. Mattys Funnies was broadcast from 1959 to 1961 by ABC. It was originally called Matty's Fun Day Funnies. The story was about a boy called Matty Mattel, an animated mascot for Mattel toy makers. The sponsors for the show. It was an anthology series compiled from the theatrical animated short film series released from 1950 to 1959. All these films were produced by Famous Studios, an animation studio by Paramount Pictures. The short film featured characters such as Little Audrey, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Baby Huey, Herman, and Catnip, along with several other songs and their screen titles. Matty and his sister Belle used to introduce the cartoons and commercials for Mattel products. In 1962, Matty's Funnies with Beanie and Cecil started airing, replacing this show. Matty and Belle would feature in intermissions as directors of the cartoons in their redesigned versions. This version had only 26 episodes. Bucky and Pepito, 1959 to 1960. Bucky and Pepito was a Western-themed animated series that aired in 1959. 2 young boys, called Bucky and Pepito, were the protagonists. Bucky was an American imaginative child who wore a cowboy hat, while his friend Pepito was a Mexican boy and an inventor. The depiction of Pepito was criticized, as it was believed to stereotype the Mexicans and show racism towards them. The series is partially lost now. The creators failed to renew the copyright, due to which all the episodes have entered the public domain. The Perils of Penelope Pitstop, 1969. The Perils of Penelope Pitstop aired in 1969 for 1 season, consisting of 17 episodes. The episodes were half-hour long and aired on CBS. This show was a spin-off of Wacky Races and reprised the characters of Penelope Pitstop and the Anthill Mob. Penelope was the heiress of Pitstop's vast fortune. Her guardian, Sylvester Sneakley, was secretly trying to kill her to inherit the fortune for himself. Penelope was unaware of his plans. Sylvester disguised himself as the Hooded Claw in every episode and tried to kill her off, only to be defeated by the Anthill Mob every time. Penelope also rescued the Anthill Mob whenever they were in need. Even though she'd been displayed as a damsel in distress, she was a clever girl whenever there was any danger. Snooper and Blabber, 1959. One of the segments of Quick Draw McGraw Show featured the cartoon Snooper and Blabber. This show aired from 1959 to 1961 and had 45 episodes, 7 minutes long each. This show followed a pair of detectives called Snooper, a cat, and Blabber, a mouse. They worked for the Super Snooper Detective Agency. Super Snooper took the lead in cases and always gave commands to Blabbermouse that he had to follow. The duo has been featured in several other Hanna-Barbera cartoons such as Yogi's Treasure Hunt and Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics. This show was unique because it showed a pair of cat and mouse who weren't enemies but partners working together. The Herculoids, 1967. The Herculoids is a science fiction cartoon series that premiered in 1967 and aired till 1969. 11 new episodes aired in 1981. The show was based on fantasy and science fiction. The plot takes place on a planet called Amzot. A space barbarian family had members namely Xandor, Tara, and their son Dorno, who lived with their giant pets. These pets were called the Herculoids and included space rhinoceros Tundro, laser dragon Zoc, rock ape Igu, and the shape-shifting Gloop and his son Gleep. The family, along with their Herculoids, fought to keep their planet safe from mutants, mad scientists, and invading robots. The Herculoids were as intelligent as humans, understanding their speech and emotions. This team together fought several battles to save their planet.
Your hair, and when I get to the bottom, I'll explain my plan.
What's your plan?
Jump!
Fractured Fairy Tales, 1959. This reimagined version of the classic fairy tales featured ridiculous and outrageous princesses and fairies. Fractured Fairy Tales altered the classic tales by adding some elements to fit in with modern society. The moral lessons in this retelling of the favourite stories were made to fit in with the current times. The modern twists, such as making Goldilocks learn the lesson of misusing someone else's property, the prince turning Sleeping Beauty into a public attraction, a fairy godmother turning a wicked boy into Prince Darling, and so on. Iva the Engine, 1959. Iva the Engine was a cut-out animated series, a form of stop-motion animation. The show followed the adventures of Iva, a green steam locomotive engine. His friends were Evans the Song, Jones the Steam, and Dice Station. Iva wanted to sing in the choir, but steam organ pipes replaced his whistle. Being Small Film's first production, Iva the Engine was inspired by one of the creators, Oliver Postgate's encounter with a former locomotive fireman from Wales named Denzil Ellis. Denzil believed whenever he spent time with the steam engines steaming them up in the morning, they'd come alive. The series was made in black and white when it first aired in 1958. After being revived in 1975, the episodes were in colour. The animation was done on cardboard cutouts painted with watercolours and broadcast on television in stop-motion animation. Chile Wily, 1953. Premiered in 1953, this cartoon was the first in the Chile Wily series. The show revolved around a penguin called Chile Wily, who was not equipped to live in cold weather. When a ship arrived at the South Pole, the captain left it ashore with a St. Bernard, its mascot, who was guarding it. Chile Wily went to the ship to warm himself from the stove. The dog tried to get him off the ship several times, but the penguin got him drunk on the rum lying around in a cask. When the captain returned, he found the dog asleep and the penguin was trying to save the ship from sinking. The penguin was now made the mascot of the ship, replacing the dog. Captain Pugwash, 1957. Captain Pugwash is a pirate, and the show was based on the same character from the British children's comic series. An animated adaptation of the comic strip, this show followed the adventures of the pirate and his crew on a ship called the Black Pig. Although he was a pirate and the captain of the ship, Pugwash was stupid and cowardly. He was also greedy, which often got him into trouble. Being the protagonist, he usually won the day every time. Pugwash was also a good pirate, rarely committing any crimes that regular pirates do. Little Audrey, 1949. Little Audrey, short for Audrey Smith, is a cartoon based on a comic series about a little girl, Audrey. The first cartoon aired in 1947 and ran till 1958. Little Audrey is a variation of a famous comic character, Little Lulu, which couldn't be continued due to Paramount's decision to not renew the license. Audrey was created in contrast to Lulu, although there are some similarities between the two characters. Little Audrey's first appearance was in novel tune Santa Surprise, 1947. She was also seen briefly in Olive Oil for President, a Popeye cartoon in 1948. She got her first short series, Butterscotch and Soda, in 1948. From there, Audrey started getting her cartoons with different storylines. In Tarts and Flowers, 1950, she attended a wedding in Cakeland. In Goofy Goofy Gander, 1950, she rode the clouds with Mother Goose. In The Supreme Court, 1954, she was in an underwater tribunal. She got a lot of other shows for herself. The slapstick comedy was added to her cartoon, Surfboard, 1953. Little Audrey wore a puffed sleeve dress and made 3 pigtails with ribbons in her reddish-brown hair. Later, in DreamWorks Animation Television's animated series called Harvey Street Kids, Audrey became one of the main characters. She was redesigned with a different contemporary outfit, a different hairstyle, and a tomboyish personality. Captain Video and His Cartoon Rangers. Captain Video and His Cartoon Rangers is an animated series based on the popular science fiction live-action series Captain Video and His Video Rangers. The story was about a man called Captain Video, who addressed his audience from his secret headquarters in the mountain. His purpose was to entertain the viewers in between the screenings of Paramount's cartoons such as Little Lulu, Superman, and Betty Boop. Al Hodge, who played the character of Captain Video in the live-action series, also voiced the animated version of his character. The Gerald McBoing Boing Show, 1956. The Gerald McBoing Boing Show animated series was based on the 1950 animated short film of the same name. The show premiered on Cartoon Network in the US in 1956 and ran for 2 seasons consisting of 26 episodes in total. The animation style is the same as the film, but more attention to the details was given. The show was created by Dr. Seuss. Gerald was a boy who never talked, only made sounds. The episodes were 11 minutes long, showing vignettes with Gerald. He had 2 friends who spoke, Jacob and Janine, and a dog called Burp, who burped very often. Gerald's parents were also a part of the show's main cast. The show had gags, sound checks, and real-life portions as well. The Deputy Dog Show, 1959. The Deputy Dog Show aired from 1959 to 1964. The duration of the cartoons was between 4 to 6 minutes and was shown 3.5-hour show. The show was about a dog called Deputy Dog, a deputy sheriff in Florida, although the locations changed later on as the episodes went by. The other characters in the show were Vincent Van Gogh, Muskie Muskrat, Pig Newton, Tycoon, Sheriff, Dog's boss, and his wife, Mrs. Sheriff. Most of the storylines focused on Deputy Dog dealing with the locals to please the sheriff. Additionally, Dog would also try to protect his produce from Muskie and Vance. The show's comedy was mostly sight, gag, or action-based. The Adventures of Powwow, 1956. The Adventures of Powwow used to broadcast on the Captain Kangaroo Show. It first aired in 1956. The series used to feature a Native American boy called Powwow, his friend who was a Native American girl, and their tribe's medicine man. The stories usually revolved around Powwow's discovery of an animal. The animals would be hurt or in need of some help, which made Powwow seek the medicine man's advice. His mission was to protect the wildlife and forest from various threats that they were facing. The show was available in the public domain due to the non-renewal of the copyright. The Puppetoon Show, a series of animated puppet films. The Puppetoons were first made in Europe in the 1930s. Then they made their way to the USA in the 1940s. Between 1940 and 1947, more than 40 Puppetoons were produced for Paramount Pictures. The show began when a Hungarian animator, George Powell, made an advertising film using dancing cigarettes, which led to a series of theatrical shorts. Another advertisement for Horlicks in England used this technique. The characters turned into simple geometric shapes from some objects. The replacement animation technique was used for the show. This is a type of stop-motion animation technique, and the characters were hand-carved wooden puppets. 7 out of the 40 Puppetoons that were produced received Academy Award nominations. The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, 1950. The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican debuted in the 1950s in the local stations of Chicago. Strangely, it gained fame from appearing in the worst cartoons ever by Jerry Beck. According to him, there was no evidence that this cartoon aired on television. However, it was found that this was a local puppet show in Chicago. The show aired on television for 1 month, consisting of 6 episodes. It was presented as comic strip drawings done by Sam Singer, an American animator. He voiced most of the characters. The show had low-budget sound synchronization and humans imitating the sounds of pelicans during the title track. The copyright of the show was never renewed, which means that the show is in public domain today. In 2016, all the episodes were uploaded on YouTube.
Come, Avenger. Another FEAR agent is about...
Marvelous verdict. That brings us to the end of the video. So, wrapping up this journey through 50s and 60s cartoon shows feels like saying goodbye to childhood pals. Those shows weren't just fun. They were like a time capsule of what made those eras special. You had these iconic characters teaching life lessons while making us laugh with their antics. And hey, those cartoons were more than just entertainment. They shaped how we dressed, talked, and even thought. Remember how they sneaked in those little lessons about kindness and teamwork? Sneaky, but effective. We might be all grown up now, but these shows remain like a warm hug of nostalgia. The colors, characters, and quirky storylines are like old friends you can always count on. What cartoon did you love most from back then? Drop your favorites in the comments below. If you like this video, remember to hit the like button and share this video with everyone you know. I'll see you very soon.